February 2012, Alaska wilderness. FBI agents hover over a freshly opened cache, an unmarked, weather-beaten container buried deep beneath the frozen soil. Inside, they find chemicals and materials specifically meant to speed the decomposition of a body. Nothing inside looks random. Nothing looks improvised. Everything is chosen for one purpose. This wasn't buried yesterday or last month. The dirt layers suggest it's been here for years, waiting. One agent asks the question that haunts them all: how many more of these are out there? Who is Israelkeyes? Most serial killers have patterns. They target a type. They stay in one area. They leave traces of themselves behind. Israelkeyes had no pattern. He killed in different states, different victims, different methods. Each murder looked like it was committed by a different person. By the time investigators connected his crimes, they realized something terrifying. They weren't hunting a killer. They were hunting a ghost. The invisible predator. Born in 1978, Keyes grew up in a remote Mormon community in Washington state. Isolated, disciplined, surrounded by wilderness. But while other kids learned to hunt animals, Keyes was learning something else: how to be invisible. By his teens, he'd enlisted in the army, learned combat, learned patience. And when he got out, he seemed normal. A construction worker, a father, someone you'd never look at twice. That was exactly the point. Because while everyone saw the mask, no one saw what was underneath. And by the year 2000, Israelkeyes had already begun his transformation. Not into a monster, into a machine. The architect of murder. Here's what separates Keyes from every other killer you've heard of. He didn't wait for opportunity. He created it. Years before he would commit a murder, he'd travel to a random location, sometimes thousands of miles away, and bury what he called a kill kit, a bucket, waterproof, containing everything he'd need: weapons, tools, cash, restraints. Then he'd leave and wait, sometimes years. When he finally returned, everything was ready. No purchases to trace, no suspicious behavior, no connection to the area. He'd already won before the crime even started. But the kits were only the beginning. Keyes would fly to a city with multiple layovers, turn off his phone, rent a car with cash, drive hundreds of miles to a completely different location. He didn't know who his victim would be. He didn't care. He'd sit in a parking lot and watch, wait for someone alone, someone random. No preferences, no type, no connection. Male, female, young, old. It didn't matter. That's what made him impossible to profile. And after each murder, he'd scatter the evidence across multiple states. Bury some, burn some, sink some in lakes. By the time a body was found, if it was ever found, Keyes was already back to his normal life. Going to work, picking up his daughter from school, smiling. But here's the part that still keeps investigators awake at night. They don't know when he started, or how many times he did this. The known victims. What we do know is chilling enough. In 2011, Bill and Lorraine Currier disappeared from their Vermont home. No forced entry, no witnesses, no evidence. It looked like they'd simply vanished. Keyes had flown across the country, driven to their neighborhood, and chosen them at random. He killed them, disposed of their bodies in a location that's never been found. Then he flew home. The Curriers were reported missing, but without bodies, without evidence, the case went cold. No one connected it to a construction worker in Alaska. No one could. But Keyes was getting bolder, and that would be his undoing. The final mistake. February 1st, 2012. Anchorage, Alaska. Samantha Koenig, 18 years old, was closing up the coffee stand where she worked. It was just after 8 p.m. Keyes approached, gun drawn, forced her into his truck. He'd done this before. He knew the routine. But this time, something was different. This time, he was close to home. Keyes kept Samantha alive for hours, demanding ransom from her family. Then he killed her, hid her body, and went on a 2-week cruise with his family. When he returned, he staged a proof-of-life photo, even though she was already dead, and sent it to her family with a ransom note. But here's where his machine broke down. He used her debit card in multiple states, multiple transactions, all on camera. The FBI started tracking the card, and when Keyes used it in Texas, they were waiting. March 13, 2012, Israel Keyes was arrested, and the real horror was just beginning. The confession. At first, Keyes said nothing. Then, slowly, he started talking, but only on his terms. He'd give details if they brought him coffee, specific brands. He wanted to control something, anything. And what he revealed turned the investigation into a nightmare. He admitted to the Courier murders, described details only the killer could know. He admitted to Samantha Koenig, but then he said something that made the room go silent. There are others. He wouldn't say how many, wouldn't say where, but he hinted at graves scattered across the country. Victims who'd never been reported, people no one was looking for. The FBI pushed for more information. Keyes smiled. You'll never find them all. And then, before he could reveal the full extent of his crimes, December 2nd, 2012, Israel Keyes was found dead in his cell. Suicide. He'd used a razor blade and a makeshift noose. On the wall, written in his own blood, he'd scrawled a message and drawn 11 skulls. The unanswered questions. 11 skulls. Was that the number of victims, or just the ones he wanted to claim? The FBI officially links Keyes to 3 murders, but based on his travel records, his bank withdrawals, his timeline, some investigators believe the number could be as high as 11, or more. They've searched for his kill kits in forests across America, found a few, but every expert agrees. There are more out there, buried, waiting. And here's what makes it worse. Keyes told investigators he'd been killing for over a decade. He traveled constantly, hunted in states where he had no connections, which means there are families out there who still don't know what happened to their loved ones. Cold cases that look like accidents, disappearances with no leads, and somewhere in those files is Israel Keyes. Closing, the FBI has a map. Red pins mark where Keyes admitted to traveling, where he might have buried kits, where he might have killed. The map is covered in red, from Washington to Vermont, Texas to Alaska, New York to California. And the most terrifying part? They're still updating it, because every few months, a detective somewhere finds a new clue, a transaction, a flight record, a detail that doesn't fit. And they ask the same question the FBI asked back in that Alaskan forest. How many more? Israel Keyes planned for years. He studied. He perfected. He wanted to be the killer no one could catch. And for over a decade, he was the ghost killer, the one who had no pattern, no motive, no connection to his victims, just a man who turned murder into a system. And the system is still out there,